In today's video, we have lots to talk about, including another signing with the New York Rangers. We have more updates as well involving Rangers captain Jacob Trouba. There seem to be some links about maybe going to the Buffalo Sabres. Could he end up on waivers? We'll discuss the latest rumblings around Trouba that way. Plus, Predators young goalie Yaroslav Askarov. Where could he end up? Could there be a fit with another swap of young players involving the Columbus Blue Jackets? Plus, we have lots of Leafs news to talk about here today. We're going to review a Toronto Sun article talking about Mitch Marner, any potential trade news we have on that front as far as Nick Robertson, and is Yanni Hakanpää joining the Leafs or not? We'll discuss everything we know on that situation as well coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about here today. I just want to remind everybody as well, yesterday I had announced a 25% off on all of our Top Shelf Hockey merch, including all of our shirts and hoodies. There's a link down in the pinned comment down below, so certainly check that out. We had certainly a few of you made the purchase yesterday, so certainly thank you for your support. Certainly like to, looking for some new design ideas as well. Want to get some fresh ideas out there for some shirts and hoodies and stuff before next season rolls around. So certainly if you have any thoughts or anything, certainly leave some comments. I'd love some feedback on that. But there is a link to the store and the promo code to use to get your discount on all of the entire store for the Top Shelf Hockey store, which has lots of great items there. So check that out if you haven't already. As I mentioned on today's news, lots to talk about, including another signing with the New York Rangers. They've come to terms with the restricted free agent defenseman Preds Schneider. Schneider agrees to a 2-year contract extension, $2.2 million per season. That's a pretty good deal, I think, for what he's likely going to do. I know there was some talk about maybe going longer term, but I think right now, considering where everything's at with the decor, I think this probably makes more sense for both sides. I think it's probably better for Schneider to take a bridge deal, and I think he can move up here in the lineup over the next year or so and become a more consistent member of the top four instead of being more of a third pair. And then from there, kind of get the raise that corresponds with that bigger role and kind of, take things in from there. So obviously right now with Schneider, like I said, he's behind Fox and Trouba on that right side of the Rangers blue line. We'll talk about Trouba here in just a minute. Obviously this also leaves about $5 million or so in cap space for the Rangers. And the only other piece of business right now for internally, at least without making any other trades or anything, would be signing other RFA defenseman Ryan Lindgren, who's 1 year away from being an unrestricted free agent. As we talked about yesterday, there was I think some concerns over term with Lindgren. I think the Rangers really appreciate his style of game, but also understand that on a long-term basis, his body takes a beating, blocks a lot of shots, plays a very warrior-style game, especially in the playoffs. It just takes its toll on you. So I think they're a little bit leery on a long-term commitment, but at the same time, don't want to lose him either, I think. And obviously, like I said, he plays a lot with Adam Fox. And certainly is an important piece. So I think at the end of the day, they'll get things figured out and hopefully for their sake avoid arbitration. But they should have enough cap space and wiggle room there to get that done without making other moves. The other quick signing, which we'll touch on as well, which is actually a player leaving North America heading to Europe, is Oskar Steen, formerly of the Boston Bruins. He's been 4 or 5 years in their system in North America. Has some NHL experience, a lot more in the AHL. He has signed over in Sweden. It goes back to the SHL. So obviously, I'm not sure if he'll be back or not. Hard to say. But Steen goes to Sweden and will not be returning to the Bruins organization this fall. Now, of course, as I mentioned, with the Rangers, we're going to talk about Trouba a little bit here as well. So obviously, we get the Schneider contract done now. Lindgren's likely going to be the next thing we see there. And I've noticed some more rumblings online about Trouba. At this point, we all know that he has done everything to his power to prevent a trade out of the Big Apple. We know that, right? He had a no-move clause leading into July 1st, protected himself there. Then we get a modified no-trade starting July 1, and rumor has it, which is probably true, it makes sense, which is why nothing's happened as well, that he's blocked all the teams that he thought they would possibly move to, especially his home state team, the Detroit Red Wings, which is the rumor, according to Larry Brooks of the New York Post, that they had something already kind of lined up, and they just had to wait for the no-move clause to change to a modified no-trade. And the hope was that Drury would be able to retain a little bit of money and send the final 2 years of Jacob Trouba to Detroit. And it also explains some of the what I questioned calling really odd moves by Steve Yzerman in Detroit. I think it might, to be honest, kind of throw their plans a little bit for a loop too. And it's hard to say how they respond. Like I don't really know that they would have traded Jake Wallman for nothing at that, without bringing somebody else in like that. It was just kind of an odd move. They also got rid of Robbie Fabry. Again, doesn't mean that it couldn't happen, but we'll see. But I've seen in the accounts that are talking about this online, I don't believe have any actual legit sources. So at least I can't verify that they do. They're not really people that are confirmed insiders. So I try not to put a lot of stock into that stuff, but sometimes it gets out there enough that I just want to talk about it. Not so much that I'm saying it's going to happen or I'm buying into it. It's just more than anything dispelling it. But I've seen a lot of links about Trouba to Buffalo, and I don't get it. I mean, they do have the cap space, so realistically, it is possible. But I kind of thought from when I'm looking at it, it's like the only real link is that it's in the state of New York. I mean, we know that Trouba doesn't want to leave New York City because not only, well, obviously he likes it there, but more than anything, I think if he didn't have outside family circumstances here, like with his wife, knowing that the team would like to move on, I think he'd probably be more willing to kind of play ball. But of course, his wife is a doctor, is doing her residency right now at a New York City hospital, and still has another year before she will be able to be more flexible to move. So, like he's made it known. We've heard this on numerous occasions. This isn't breaking news that Jacob Trouba is very supportive of his wife's career and says that going to New York, it's not just it's a dream for both of them and a career move for both of them. And from what I can see, say what you want about him as a player. Some people call him dirty. I don't agree with a lot of his hits and think that he should be careful in how he plays. But he does look like he's a really good family person. I'll give him that. At least that's how things look from the outside. I obviously don't know him personally. But the link to the Sabres, to me, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, really, if you're looking at geographically a place that he might be more willing to go, wouldn't it make more sense for New Jersey or even Long Island? It would make more sense than Buffalo. Now, of course, if you're going to drive like that's a big New York State's a big state. I mean, by car, that's about 6 hours from Buffalo to New York City. It's not close. Now, by airplane, flying, it's not all that far. It'd be probably an hour, 15 minutes, something like that. It'd be a short flight. But again, it's not that close geographically. So I don't really know that it would make sense for him to be okay, well, you know what? I don't want to go all the way to Detroit, but I'll go to Buffalo if you can send me there. It just doesn't make any sense. And the other thing, I'm not really sure that his age and where he's at in his career really kind of line up with what they're doing there in Buffalo. But at the same time, I do think he might actually be able to make their decor better and could provide some leadership to a young team. So I do think there's parts of the rumor that make sense. I just don't know that it really does. I just think it was people who are kind of talking about it because of the geography. And that makes zero sense to me whatsoever. But like I said, they do have $14 million and change in space. They have to sign a few players, including Beck Malenstein, who's not going to make a lot of money. They got to sign Peyton Krebs. He's not going to make a lot of money. They got to sign Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He'll get a bit more than the other two, but still not huge, right? So, really, after all three are signed, they could still absorb the Trouba contract. There's no doubt. Now, whether or not, we don't know exactly how Trouba went about his modified no trade. Clearly, I think it's 14 or 15 teams that he's able to block. I would think that he was probably very strategic with his agent. I don't know if they went about things geographically and saying, okay, well, here's all the teams that we think would make the most sense that might entertain doing this and block them. Or is it more of a case of looking at cap space and be like, okay, well, these are the teams that have the ability to take my contract on, so block them. I'm not sure how they went about it when they made the list. But they definitely put Detroit on there for sure because that was the main linkage. And rumor that was out there that was not quiet, which is, I seen a comment from somebody saying, this is why Lou Lamoriello makes sure nothing gets out. And you know what? There is a point to that. But some of these, you got to remember, like some of these reporters and everything, that's their job, is to be insiders and to kind of help get the talk around the sport. So at the same time, anyway, so we'll see. I just don't know that there's a lot of substance to this. But at the same time, if you look at their blue line, you've got Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin on your right side, right? You obviously have Bowen Byram that you acquired. He's. I think he can theoretically play both sides, but left. You got Matthias Samuelsson on the right side. They use another right side defenseman. They could. They signed Henry Yukaharu to a $3 million contract, but they could push him down the line. They do technically have a spot. I mean, when they acquired Byram, there was they wanted another top four defenseman, and he is a top four defenseman, but. Just from a lefty-righty perspective, they theoretically could take a Trouba contract on, put Byram more of as a third pair, and make it work. And it brings in somebody with a lot of experience, with leadership qualities, whatever. I don't know. I still don't think it's going to happen, but at least I do think there's part of it that makes sense. But I'm pretty sure that whole rumor came from geographical circumstances, which doesn't make sense. Now, the other thing that I've heard about this is if he doesn't want to play ball, and we've seen Chris Drury already do this with Barclay Goodrow, is could he be really dirty and say, screw it, I'm putting him on waivers? Because the only problem is, though, is all the trade talk that we've heard when it comes to Detroit, Buffalo, or any of these teams is that the Rangers were going to eat a little bit of that money. And they can't do that if they put them on waivers and a team picks them up. So Drury would have to talk to somebody and be like, okay, they'd have to have a backdoor deal, so to speak. Say, okay, maybe they work it out and be like, okay, we'll take Trouba's full contract through waivers. We'll put in a claim to take him off your hands. But then maybe, we send you another contract and a different deal or something. They could go about things in a, roundabout type of way that really wouldn't break any rules. But there are some that still think there's a possibility they could put Trouba on waivers. But, doing this with Barclay Goodrow, who's, yes, a great playoff performer, but, a fourth-line player who was grossly overpaid, not performing in the regular season, okay, that you can justify a lot easier. But with your team captain, you got to be careful with their whole, the whole room, the whole team. You don't want to end up with a toxic situation in the locker room and all that. So you got to be careful. So we'll see what happens there. But all the Buffalo stuff just doesn't make sense to me. And could he go on waivers? It could happen. I just don't know if Chris Drury's going to be that ruthless. But we'll see. They do want to win a Stanley Cup at all costs. So we'll see. Now, some other young players we've heard about. Yaroslav Askarov, the young Russian goaltender in the Predators system. Of course, we hasn't had anything leak out saying he officially requested a trade, but I don't think it's anybody's surprise would be to hear that he definitely sounds, from what we've heard, that he would prefer it at this point. After signing UC Saros and bringing in Scott Wedgwood, he's basically blocked from getting to the NHL. And the Predators are definitely open to moving him. I did see a rumor back, would have been probably 4 or 5 days ago now, suggesting that there was some chatter with the Columbus Blue Jackets. We know that, which would make a lot of sense. We know at some point in the near future they're going to move on from Elvis Merzlikins. They do have Tarasov in their system. They signed Jet Greaves. He's got some potential. But I think it's fair to say that the ceiling for Askarov is way higher than probably either of those guys. At least it looks that way right now. Time will tell. Maybe things will work out differently. But for Don Waddell to make a move to bet on him being the best goalie of the bunch wouldn't be far-fetched at all and would be a wise move, I would think. I've seen some speculation, of course, that maybe the Predators would want a player like a Kent Johnson. Now, Johnson, I think because of the leadership and management change, maybe a little bit hard to say that it's going to be moved for sure, but based on last year and how things were going, I would have said I've thought for some time that it's just a matter of time before he gets moved. So we'll see. But the Blue Jackets is definitely a team that would make a lot of sense for Askarov. They do have some younger pieces there that might make sense for them to give one of them up to bring in this potential all-star goaltender if they really believe in him that much. So stay tuned for that. I know as far as players linked to Montreal for that top young player, so to speak, I see another article looking at options that the Canadiens should consider. They talked about Trevor Zegras, they talked about Marty Necas, talked about Capo Caco, and Kent Johnson's name was mentioned. And Johnson, the author of the article, believed that Johnson might actually be the best fit. And I might make an argument that he just might be. Johnson right now looks like he can probably play wing, maybe center. It's hard to say what he is long term, but has a ton of skill, and I think would be a good fit. I'm not sure that he's really would necessarily be a better fit than Zegras. They do have some similarities in how they play, but at the same time, Johnson probably would come at a lower price cost for sure. Marty Necas at this point might end up staying in Carolina. Doesn't mean he's going to stay long term. But they're getting close to an arbitration date. Maybe they work things out that he signs and stays for another year. It says, look, we're going to elevate you in the lineup. We're going to give you more what you want. Let's try to make this relationship work. And if things are really not, if you're not any happier in next season, then we'll move you then or something. Like maybe they'll figure something out. But if the Canadiens are going to make a move, obviously the Rangers link from Gorton to Kako. But, Kako's underperformed. Johnson, to me, is a guy that, maybe they could get for a good price. Send a good defenseman over to Columbus. Maybe for him, that's a possibility, too. So I've seen Johnson's name mentioned in a few different trade conversations in that way. But for Columbus, if you can get a guy like Askarov, I'd probably make that move. But we'll see. Now, lots of Leafs news as well. Article from the Toronto Sun and Terry Koshin looking at Mitch Marner, Nick Robertson, and Yanni Hakanpää. At this point, the latest on Marner and a potential trade, Terry says here that coming out of the NHL draft at the end of June, word was around league circles was that if a Marner trade was going to happen, that it sounded like it was going to take some time for things to kind of, be consummated, so to speak, and it was going to probably be at least a few weeks. Well, it's been a few weeks, and we've had nothing yet. It just kind of feels like a lot of reporters are saying that the longer things go, the less likely it's going to happen, and it's probably fair. Like, in all honesty, if we get to August and there's no Marner trade, I wouldn't say for sure that he's going into training camp like 100%. You can't really say that about a lot of players because we could always be surprised. I mean, look at when I'll never forget the Matthew Tkachuk trade to Florida happened in the wee hours of the morning, late July. It was kind of a crazy time. But we did kind of see that coming though, because we knew at that point, probably what was it? I think it was about maybe a week or a little bit less before that the word had got out that Tkachuk told Calgary he wasn't re-signing and they should trade him and that he would consider a sign and trade, which worked out. So, in Marner's case here, essentially, we've heard that there's definitely been some conversations. Nothing has obviously come to the point that the Leafs really wanted to push him to waive or anything of that nature. So we don't really know, but like I said, the word coming out of the draft, according to the Toronto Sun article, is that it's going to take some time. Well, we're at that time frame. So if we don't get something soon, it's probably less likely. Now, I've seen a lot of people even comment on my videos on the channel here and say, some people claim that they know Marner or they have somebody that they're friends with who's a good buddy with the family. I mean, I've seen numerous comments of like this. I can't put any stock into any of it because I don't know if they're being honest or not, saying that, that there is one or two destinations he would consider, and if that's not on the table, then he's not waiving at all, and that he's going to play out the contract and weigh his options in free agency next year. And to be honest, I wouldn't put it past that being true. Like I said before, I can see there being one or two teams that would make sense for me that Marner would be like, yeah, you know what, okay, I'd consider that. I would consider signing an extension there. And to me, the main one that makes the most sense to me still is Vegas. So we'll see. But again, there's been a lot of stuff around Marner lately. It's kind of got people talking, like we talked about yesterday, how he had his big charity event that he has every summer for the 6th year in a row. No media was allowed in. So, of course, he works for the Toronto Maple Leafs, owned by MLSE, which is the two biggest shareholders are, Bell and Rogers. Bell and Rogers own Sportsnet and TSN. So none of those reporters who, theoretically are owned or work for the same company in a sense are even allowed to attend and talk to him and ask any questions. It's just kind of a weird way going about things. And honestly, like I said yesterday too, like if you want to kind of steer attention away from it, just talk about it. Like to me, sometimes avoiding it and not talking about it makes it worse. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, the main piece here from the article was that there was a lot of talk that things were kind of being talked about a bit, and it was going to probably take a few weeks for there to have any chance of anything happening, for something to be consummated. And while it doesn't mean when it's not happening, it just means that we're there. We're kind of in that time frame. So if we don't get something soon, then it's probably less likely that it's going to happen. When it comes to Nick Robertson, the belief is that the Leafs are still kind of hoping that he'll change his mind. I don't know that they really want to trade him, and I think that his request to be moved took a lot of people by surprise. So at this point, considering they lost Tyler Bertuzzi, and if you look at the other moves they've made, like they really haven't done a whole lot with the forward group. The decor is different. Obviously, they brought in Tanev, who's been a long-time target. And they got Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They have a new goaltending tandem. So, like, they have a few changes in the back end. But the problem in the playoffs is that they can't score. That, surprisingly, in the last number of years, offense in the playoffs dries up. They can't seem to put the puck in the net. And that's the biggest reason to me why they have not been able to get over the hump and win more playoff games, which will lead to more playoff series wins. And they have not addressed that at all. So they lose Bertuzzi. And I think they're kind of hoping Robertson would step in, but now he wants out, doesn't want to sign. I think they're hoping that maybe he'll just take his qualifying offer and show up to training camp, is kind of what this article here leads us to believe. And I just don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see just how headstrong Robertson is on wanting this move and if he'll change his mind or not. But considering his history is not like super extensive and whatnot, I just don't know that he has high value. Could they maybe get another young player that's similar scenario? Maybe, but it's not the easiest thing to find. He's a California kid. Would he like to go to California? Probably would be happy with that. So I looked at some of those teams, but again, I just don't know where he's going to end up. So we'll see. But the trade request is still very much intact, and I think they're just hoping to wait him out here and change his mind. We'll see. But again, nothing real concrete there. When it comes to Yanni Hakanpää, we still, all these days later, still don't have an official announcement. So this article also touches on that, saying don't count your chickens here, saying that he's going to be in training camp with the Leafs, because at this point we're 2 weeks past free agency. They've yet to announce this, and this was came out on the first day saying they were signing him to a 2-year deal, $1.5 million, and it was probably pending physical and getting the doctors check him out, because we knew that obviously the Toronto Sun article from Steve Simmons made mention that his knee was really bad, and that's why Dallas didn't want him back. They weren't going to sign him because they don't think that he's really capable of being the same defenseman he used to be, and not really sure how much he can play anymore. He missed the last chunk of the season, and well, here we are. And now the Leafs are not only willing to sign him apparently, but give him multiple years. And here we are 2 weeks later. They still have not announced anything. So it just, again, they can't confirm 100% where things are at with this signing. But they said that they would not go anywhere near putting him on the roster, or for the fans at least to be thinking, okay, he's definitely going to be there. I don't know that we can say that by any means. So we're going to have to wait word on that as well. So that's another big question mark. And who's going to be the penalty killers on the blue line, especially for this team? Tanev can do that, but a lot of the guys who killed penalties before are gone. Giordano's gone. Brody's gone. Obviously some of these other guys. And Timothy Liljegren's another name out there that very much could be in play. Just because he signed him doesn't mean he's staying. But it just for Brad Treliving and the Leafs, who made it say everything's on the table, and all the talk about it sounds like there's going to be all this change, and really all they've really done is they replaced Elias Samsonov with Anthony Stolarz, and they brought in Tanev. And is Ekman Larsson really an upgrade on the blue line? I don't really know that he is, but we'll see. He obviously won a Stanley Cup with Florida. Don't want to completely dismiss him, but I mean, I just wasn't sure that he was the style of defenseman that they really needed. I mean, he is good skater, good puck mover. So we'll see if the value in the contract there can be fair value or not. But we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, lots of unfinished business, you could say, with Toronto, and lots of question marks around this team. But it sure looks like they're running it back with very little change going into next season. So let me know your thoughts on what are we going to see. Are they going to pull off some fireworks here that's going to surprise us, or are we going to end up seeing maybe a case with Nick Robertson? Are they going to end up just kind of forcing him to either not play, or are they going to move him? Because it doesn't sound like they really want to. And is Marner going to be back? It sure sounds like he's likely going to be. So let me know what you think in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.